You start with the exact same number. That's the uncomfortable part. Not similar numbers, not almost the same life, the same salary, $72,000 a year, same city, same economy, same inflation, same algorithm, same starting line. At 24 years old, the difference between the two of you is almost invisible, and that's why nobody notices it happening. You meet each other at work, same office, same fluorescent lighting, same coffee machine that barely works. You both complain about the same manager. You both scroll the same social feeds during lunch. You both say the same things. We're still young. We should enjoy life. We'll take money seriously later. And for a while, your lives move almost perfectly together. Same dinners, same bars, same online shopping habits, same vacations booked because everyone else was going. If someone looked at your lives from the outside, they would assume your futures were already decided. They would be wrong. Because freedom does not separate itself dramatically at first. It separates itself quietly. At 25, person A gets a raise. Not huge. Enough to feel like progress. The first thing he upgrades is the apartment, not because he needs more space, because his current apartment no longer feels aligned with the version of himself he believes he's becoming. That sentence will cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars over the next decade, but right now, it just feels exciting. Better location, better furniture, better lighting for photos. His monthly expenses rise slowly enough that he never experiences the increase as pain. That's how lifestyle inflation works. Not as one catastrophic decision, but as a sequence of socially rewarded upgrades. Person B gets the same raise. He feels the temptation too. That's important. These stories are always told incorrectly, as if disciplined people simply don't want things. They do. He wants the apartment, the clothes, the visible progress. He just notices something uncomfortable. Every upgrade that increases his fixed monthly expenses quietly reduces his future flexibility. So instead of upgrading the apartment, he automates the raise. Half into investments, half into savings. Then he leaves his lifestyle mostly unchanged. Nobody notices. That's the beginning of the divergence. The strange thing about modern spending is that most of it no longer feels luxurious. It feels normal. That's why people miss it. The luxury car becomes reliable transportation. The expensive apartment becomes mental health. The constant food delivery becomes saving time. Every purchase arrives with a justification attached to it, and the algorithm helps reinforce all of them. Because platforms built on attention have learned something extremely profitable. People engage most with lifestyles slightly above their own. Not billionaire lifestyles, not private jets. Just people one or two levels ahead. The friend with the better apartment. The creator with the cleaner desk setup. The coworker with the new watch. Close enough to imitate. Far enough to trigger insecurity. At 26, both of them still look successful. This is important. The divergence remains invisible for years. Person A now earns more than he did at 24. But somehow, the feeling of financial pressure has not disappeared, because income growth without behavioral control often just increases the size of the system consuming you. His subscriptions multiply, his standards rise, his definition of basic changes. The expensive things stop feeling expensive after 3 months. Then new expensive things appear. This is one of the least discussed realities of consumer psychology. Humans adapt upward frighteningly fast. Person B experiences something different. Not excitement, not dramatic transformation. Space, tiny amounts of space. The kind created when your income begins growing faster than your lifestyle. At first, the space is small. A few thousand invested, a small emergency fund, no panic when unexpected expenses appear. Then the space starts compounding psychologically because money does something people rarely talk about honestly. It changes the amount of fear in your daily decisions. At 27, person A upgrades the car. The old one still works, but it no longer feels representative of his life. Everyone around him is upgrading too, and humans calibrate normality socially. If 5 people around you finance luxury vehicles, eventually financing one stops feeling irrational. It starts feeling delayed. The payment becomes another permanent monthly obligation. Not devastating, just heavy, quietly heavy. That is how most financial traps actually feel while you are inside them. Not dramatic, just normal. Person B still drives the same car, not because he's enlightened, because every time he considers upgrading, he runs the math. Not just the car payment, the opportunity cost, what happens to that money over 10 years invested consistently, what future freedom costs in present consumption. And eventually he notices something strange. Delayed gratification stops feeling like sacrifice once you trust where the system is taking you. Year 4. The economy slows. Layoffs begin appearing online. Everyone suddenly starts talking about job security again. Person A feels anxiety immediately. Not because he is irresponsible, because his entire life now requires constant income flow to sustain itself. The apartment, the car, the subscriptions, the social expectations, the lifestyle. Every fixed expense quietly transformed employment into necessity, and necessity creates fear. Person B experiences stress too, but differently, because he has built what most people are actually searching for when they say they want wealth: time. His emergency fund covers 8 months of expenses. His investments continue automatically. He is uncomfortable, but not destabilized. That difference matters more than income. By 30, the gap becomes visible, not externally, financially. Person A earns nearly 6 figures now. Objectively successful. From the outside, his life appears ahead, but most of his income already belongs to decisions he made years earlier. His paycheck arrives pre-allocated, and despite earning more money than ever before, he still feels financially fragile underneath the surface of his lifestyle. That contradiction confuses him. Person B also earns more now, but his raises created ownership instead of obligations. His brokerage account passes $140,000, then $180,000, then higher. Not through genius, not through stock picking, mostly through consistency, which is frustratingly boring advice. But boring scales better than excitement financially. This is usually where people misunderstand wealth. They think wealth is visible. But visible wealth is often just visible spending. Actual wealth is usually hidden. It lives in paid-off time, low obligations, invested capital, flexibility, reduced desperation. Most people never see these things directly, so they underestimate their importance. At 32, the social differences begin changing too. Person A feels permanently busy. He spends most of his time maintaining the structure of the life he built. More income, more expenses, more pressure. The machine gets larger, not freer, larger. Person B's life still looks relatively ordinary. Same general clothes, same apartment style, same routines. But underneath, something fundamental has changed. He can now survive without income for over a year. His investments generate meaningful growth on their own. His side income covers part of his living expenses. And for the first time in his adult life, work starts feeling optional psychologically. Not fully optional, but less tied to survival. That changes a person quietly. Here's the part nobody likes hearing. The difference was never intelligence, or motivation, or even income. The difference was behavioral drift repeated for a decade. That's all. Tiny recurring decisions, repeated thousands of times. Most people wait for a breakthrough financially, but financial lives usually change through accumulation, not events. At 34, both people attend the same dinner, same city, same conversation, same table, and from the outside they still look similar. That's what makes this difficult to understand. Person A arrives in the newer car, person B arrives in the older one. Most people at the table assume they understand the situation immediately. They don't, because one person owns a lifestyle, the other owns increasing amounts of time, and time is the thing everyone was actually trying to buy all along. 10 years after starting from the exact same salary, the difference between them is no longer money. It's freedom. One person needs the machine to continue exactly as it is. The other person built enough distance from the machine that interruptions no longer feel catastrophic. That emotional difference changes everything. How you sleep, how you negotiate, how you think, how much fear exists underneath your decisions. And the strangest part is that almost none of the divergence came from dramatic moments. It came from invisible ones. The apartment not upgraded, the car not financed, the purchase paused, the raise automated, the pressure ignored. Small, quiet decisions, repeated consistently. That was the entire split. The world teaches people to measure wealth visually, but financial freedom is mostly invisible while it's being built. That's why so few people recognize it early enough to choose it intentionally. Because the beginning does not feel powerful. It feels smaller, quieter, slower. Until one day, 10 years later, two people who started in the exact same place discovered they were never really walking in the same direction at all.